In this episode, I have a mixed bag for you. I have some behind the scenes, home and garden, and some anxiety chats. One of the members in the community asked me to share the behind the scenes of whenever I do the telly segment on Ireland AM. So I'm just doing some prep for a segment where I'm going to be talking about vertical wall gardens, which you have seen on the channel before. I think I did it back in autumn time. And the reason why I'm doing this is because it's in my book. So it's a nice plug for the book. But instead of kind of just going on and only talking about your book, it's nice to go on and do a project because you're giving value then to the viewer of the show. And then you can say, buy my book. So by the time this video goes up, my segment will have been done, and it was the 7th of May. Ireland AM do have a player that you can watch back, but they also sometimes upload their full programmes onto YouTube where you can just watch them for free. And I was on at the end of the show at 9:45. So the 7th of May at 9:45, if you want to watch back on the segment. I did a tease at 9 a.m. That's just where you're like, hey, I'll be on talking about my plants. So I do all of the prep and all of the contributors do. So with television, I think there is assumptions that it's all glamorous and there's people that go around and they do things for you. But maybe that's true for really, really large television stations and corporations, but it's definitely not the case in Ireland. And I know the same in the UK from chatting to some of my fellow creators who do some telly work. I don't know, maybe Hollywood movies made it look more glamorous than it is, but everyone puts in their graft for prepping for their segment. So even if it's someone going on doing cooking, they will go and they will get all the ingredients and everything. They'll prep their slot. We send in our notes as well, and then the producer will go through our notes so that the presenters on the day know pretty much what we're doing. And the presenters put in like some job because they will speak. There could be, I don't know, anywhere from 5 to 10 contributors in a 3-hour morning show. They have to, I suppose, show interest in every topic. The lads are sound as well, so they always have good interest in the garden segment. So I shared my notes on vertical gardens over on Instagram. So for anyone who hasn't got the book, I did pop up some notes that you can save on Instagram, so that'll be on my grid. And Ireland AM did pop up like a little reel, just sharing a little tease from the episode. So if you want to head over there for all the info. There's also a video from back in autumn time where I did this. I think it was September I could have done this. I basically got rain pipes there on my neighbour's skip and I turned them into a little wall planter. So I'm excited to see how they're going to look. I need to plant them up with some more. I think I'm just going to put some bedding plants in them, some annuals, because they are shallow. And you'll see from the notes that I have over on Instagram that when something is shallow, you're a bit more limited in what you can plant. But some of the sedums have come back from the ones that I planted in autumn time, which is good to see. I've also had some lovely comments and feedback from people saying that, you know, they like the segment on the telly and they'd love to see me more often. But I suppose just to give you a bit of insight, and I suppose the reason why I can't do it all the time is, so I'm self-employed and television and radio, while they're like fun to do, and there's a very, very small contribution fee, and I put in probably like a day of prep, not all in one go, but if I was to, I suppose, add up the hours that I put in when it comes to preparing the notes and getting the plants and making up my display. So unfortunately that's why I can't do it that often, is because I have to prioritise paid work. And I don't know why I'm getting ick even saying that, but I do. If I was a millionaire and I just go on and do all those fun things. Another reason as well is the energy exchange. So what I mean by that is I get an awful lot of anxiety beforehand, and it's fine when I'm doing it, and I've had it all the time when it comes to doing it. I'm not as bad with radio as much because I think it's not visual, but television is. Now I am going to be having the anxiety chats later on in this video, but as you know, the footage that you're watching now, I was stuck in my head and I was quite anxious. So I try to do it often, but I can't afford to do it too often, if that makes sense. And what I meant by a contribution fee, it means I receive a small fee for doing it. Now it's very small, but a lot of the time when I do radio interviews, they are like unpaid, and I have done unpaid television work as well. So just to give you a little insight into how it works, and I can obviously only talk about Ireland. This could be different in, UK and America. You may receive more payment for doing things like this. But I just noticed it in the comment section. A lot of people ask some questions, and absolutely ask away, because these are things that I would be curious about and be like, oh, I wonder, do they actually get paid for that? Very little, my friend. Whenever I am feeling anxious, whether it creeps up to 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, one thing that definitely helps is knowing that it will pass. I know the old cliche of this too shall pass, but it always does. But I suppose it's not trying to fight it in the moment, and something that I like to do to allow the time to pass is a bit of gardening. So I had lots of weeds in the front. I haven't been doing much weeding, but my borders are very full compared to other years, and I think it's kind of suppressing the weeds. I normally do a big mulch in March, but I was late doing it this year. I've half a bag of mulch left, so I'm just mulching the areas that are kind of visible. One thing that I always get in the front is tree seedlings. I get loads of them, and I suppose they're kind of like a weed because I don't need to grow more trees. So some people had commented saying I had a lot of leaves for someone that had very little trees in the garden, but my regular viewers will know I have lovely big mature trees right on the other side of the wall. Thankfully, I get their leaves, and I do have some leaf mould brewing away that I took bags of in autumn. But I suppose the leaves that I don't get my hands on, there can be little seeds that start to grow underneath. So I do pull these up because I want that border full of the lovely perennials. And speaking of borders, I am just starting to tip away with the planting of the new raised beds that's in the front. If you saw, I think in last week's video or the video before, I was saying how I just have a square patch of grass that's in another area of the garden, and I decided to get double height raised bed made all around the perimeter of it. And the goal is, when I'm looking out my living room, I will see loads of plants, because I didn't have that visual in the front. A lot of my planting is at the side and it's at the back, so I want to look out the living room and see lovely plants. So far what I've done is I've put the sweet peas out. I don't think I filmed that. I think I filmed a few clips of the sweet peas for Instagram. I'll pop them in actually if I have them on my phone. So I sowed loads of sweet peas. I absolutely love the smell of sweet peas, and I'm hoping, because I've planted some near my window, in a summer's evening, if I have the window open, I might even be able to get that lovely sweet pea scent. So I had some flowers in pots actually from last year. I know, I didn't plant them last year. So I'm popping in some Achillea. I had a Rudbeckia, and I'm going to get another Rudbeckia, maybe 2 or 3 more, to do a cluster of them. Then I have some dahlias that I'm going to put in, and I'm going to a plant sale with Karen the weekend, and there is a particular flowering shrub that I really want to get my hands on, but it's sold out everywhere. So if flowers, I actually found it when we visited gardens back in January. I think it was January, February, and this bush was beautiful, and it was flowering, and the smell of it was amazing. So I'm hoping I can get my hands on it, but I'm definitely going to keep a space for it. But I'm going to put that on the front section. I'm going to add more height to the front, and I'm going to treat the plants kind of more like a screen, so that I can't see like out into my neighbours, if that makes sense. So when things start to kind of grow up, there is some shrubs belonging to my neighbour on the other side that's nice and tall. I'm just being careful filming in this area just for my neighbours' privacy. I don't want to be, filming their front lawn and stuff. So when things start to grow up and I have more screening and privacy, I'll be able to show this area a bit better. Okay, this is an unflattering angle, but I got just a couple of clips. I will be, like I said, how many times have I said anxious in this week's video? Whenever I have telly, it's obviously an early start because it's morning television. So I will do my makeup first with a cup of tea or drink a pint of water. And the reason behind this is whenever I'm anxious, I have to tick my basics. Am I hydrated? Do I have something to eat in my belly? I also have to do my own makeup. And I had the assumption that, oh, television, someone will do your makeup and your glam. Girl, no. No, we do not have the budget for that. There is a makeup artist in Ireland, but she just does touch-ups and it's mostly putting powder on for any shine. Obviously, the lights and stuff are different. So I do have to put on nighttime makeup kind of, just because them cameras are not flattering. But I am outside today, so the lighting isn't as bad, it's more natural. But when you're in the studio, you can look quite pale. So sometimes I'll come out with loads of bronzer on and I will look like orange. I accidentally dropped my boiled egg as well today. Once I arrive at the studio, I unpack the car that is full to the brim of plants and I set up the table, and the guys kind of just leave me to it at this stage. I then get mic'd up, so I have my little microphone on and I feel like a Power Ranger with the battery pack on my back. I usually do a tease around about 9 a.m. if I'm on at the end of the show, so that will just be coming up next, and then I will just be like, yeah, I'm on talking about this. Once that's done, I go to makeup. She gives me a little touch up, bit of lipstick. Then I have to do a lot of deep breathing, and then it's showtime. Hello, my lovelies. Before I take off my lovely dress and ruin my nice makeup, look at actually the lipstick. So I always forget to put lipstick on. I just be going around looking like I've no lips. There just be foundation on them. Are you well? They have the zoomies. Emma, who does the makeup in Ireland, when I say makeup, you just get a touch up. She put this lipstick on and it's Clarins 705. I'm just looking in the mirror there. Clarins 705. It's the perfect, I don't like a big red lip. I feel like it's the perfect everyday nude. Got a bit of berry in it. Now it's worn off, but it even looks a bit nice worn off. Anyway, I have a giant Costa coffee with one shot of caffeine. So I wanted, speaking of caffeine and anxiety, also apologies for the noise of the cats running around, they're just giddy. It's actually quite fun watching them. So I wanted to have the anxiety chats. I think why I want to have the chats is because I sometimes see comments on, whether it's, you know, Instagram or on here, saying, oh my god, you look amazing, you seem so confident, you're glowing. And I'm like, if only you knew. And I'm sharing this because I'm sure there is fellow anxious people watching as well. I've been having an anxious spell, I'm gonna say, for the past couple of weeks, almost couple of months. I actually started therapy last summer. I think what triggered it was overworking, and I was doing the book as well as like taking on too much. I felt really exhausted at Christmas and I got sick, just like a virus thing. And then in January, I thought, great, I have, you know, January to recover. And then I ended up having to take on some work because I lost a client. Anyway, basically, I think it was just, I had a period of a couple of months where I overworked and I pretty much like exhausted myself. I don't want to use the word burnout because that's quite an extreme thing. I was still able to kind of go about my business and I was able to work, but I was, I suppose, emotionally exhausted, and I think it was from feeling so anxious all of the time. And then a couple of weeks ago, I had a bad couple of days where the anxiety overwhelm was like just bad, to the point where I felt like I couldn't make decisions. I'm sure you have felt like that when you're really overwhelmed. Simple noises were startling. I am naturally introverted. Is it the Myers-Briggs personality test? I am an INFJ. So I'm naturally introverted anyway, even though I probably come across extroverted maybe when I do like YouTube or if I'm in public, but I recharge by being in my own company or with animals. And I do get quite drained by social situations. So I think A thought that triggered more anxiety was around about March time. Coming into April, I was like, oh my God, it's April. That means it's a month before my book comes out and I'm exhausted. And I had this expectation, because expectations can get you in trouble. So I had this expectation that come April, I would be full of energy and I would be past all of that, you know, anxious feelings and stuff. But I wasn't. I was actually worse. So I just allowed it. So first of all, I do have a weekly therapist that I chat to. I don't take medication for anxiety. Take a few little herbal things. I don't know if they work. I know some people might recommend, oh, you know, take magnesium, take this, but please don't recommend things just because. I'm just thinking of viewers watching, because when you're in an anxious state, you are susceptible to buy random stuff. So please don't buy a supplement because someone recommends it in the comment section if you're in the height of anxiety, expecting it to be your cure. And because I know when you're in the heightened state, I think you're vulnerable to be taken advantage of. Supplements are great, but do try and I think talk to someone. And then do the breathing exercises and all of that. So what has helped me is acceptance, and it's very hard to do because all weekend I had this dread of television, and I was chatting to the girls today and I'm like, I don't know why my body, like there is no threat when I go to the television studio. There's nobody there to harm me physically. There's no one there to harm me emotionally. The presenters are so sound, and even the guests, there's just nice people. I was chatting to one of the guys today as well who was there. They were talking about like the Met Gala and the dresses and stuff. Like, I don't know why I have associated it with a threat and public speaking in general. So I have turned down some public speaking things, and I get why people would ask me to do workshops and stuff, because what I do is very workshop based, even if it's a garden demo or if it's like a DIY demo. But to not flood my system, my nervous system, with all of this anxiety of these things that I just dread doing them, but I like doing them once I've done them. What am I trying to say? Once I've done them and I'm in the moment of doing them, they're not as scary. It's the build up to doing it. I think I'm going off on a waffle, but my point I think that I'm trying to say is please don't be fooled by anyone's social media, or if you think, oh my God, that's amazing, you have a book out and you're on television, but it comes with a basket load of anxiety. But what I will say is, anytime I go through an anxious spell, it always reinforces the learns on like coping and accepting and trying to float through it. So yeah, don't be fooled by or compare to other people, because I'm like, I even think some like people who are really experienced doing public speaking, I'm like, oh my God, I have those thoughts, oh they're so confident, da, da, da. And then I talk to them and they're like, yeah, I popped a beta blocker because I get so anxious public speaking. And I'm like, okay, cool. So yeah, I feel like sometimes I can look like, is it a duck? Like a duck, where you look, or is it swan? A swan is more elegant. A swan is more elegant. But yeah, what is the phrase? You look like you're calm on the surface, but really underneath you are paddling. There is a book that I always go back to. It is Claire Weeks. The author is Claire Weeks, and she has a lot of books. It's like Hope and Help for your nerves. Now, because the book is a bit older, some of the terminology like you wouldn't use today. She talks about like nervous breakdown and stuff, but her teachings in the book are the only ones that I always kind of go back to, and I feel like other self-help books just say what she says, if that makes sense. So yeah, if you are struggling as well, I highly recommend her books. And journaling, my journal's over there. Actually, my therapist gives me homework, and I just looked on the
the worksheets that she gave me, there is a copyright on the end, so I can't reshare them here, but it's like exercises for challenging your negative thinking. Like, is this thought helpful? Am I being too critical? Are my expectations too high? And anytime I go through that worksheet, I'm like, wow, my inner voice is so critical and so like fortune telling, catastrophizing. So I am doing a lot of work on just, I'm not going to say challenging the negative voice, but just trying to look and acknowledge it. Another thing that's been really helpful is just acknowledging my nervous system. So we all have, you know, a nervous system, and then it gets flooded with adrenaline, and that's why you get those symptoms and stuff. So I feel like you can fall into a dangerous spiral when you're in an anxiety attack of checking your symptoms on the internet. So I try to just not do that and accept this is anxiety. I'm not dying of something. But your nervous system, so for example, my nervous system this morning was absolutely flooded with adrenaline because I was doing, you know, live television. Even the drive over was anxious. It didn't matter how much deep breathing I was doing. I accepted that my legs felt shaky and I could feel my heartbeat. But I just kept saying to myself, you're just here to talk to Tommy and Warren for 7 minutes about vertical wall planters and your book. Forget about who's watching. They're not even paying attention to you. Forget about them. But that's really hard to do when you're feeling the physical symptoms. So I was trying to just feel like this is, you know, this is my nervous system. There is lots of little hacks and stuff, vagus nerve exercises like twiddling here and doing that, but I find when I'm in that heightened state, it's best for me to just accept my doom. Like, instead of fighting it, I'll just be like, okay, I can feel my heart thumping. Okay, I feel a bit, my head feels a bit giddy, feel a bit lightheaded. Breathe. And then there is another worksheet I have about grounding exercises. So for me, it helps like my feet into the ground, so pushing my toes into the ground. I suppose when I'm on telly, I'm talking about plants, so I can sniff something. So you can carry like essential oil. This is a technique for grounding. So if it's, I find mint or lavender, something really strong. Well, when I need to kind of ground just before we do the daily segment, I will fiddle with like the roots of a plant or sniff something, and then yeah, just go through it. When you're going through a really anxious spell, you want to withdraw, and you want to just like, yeah, you want to just withdraw from everything that triggers your anxiety. Now, don't get me wrong, I won't be going on television every single week doing that segment because I think it would just flood my nervous system. Maybe when I feel a bit better, when I'm coming out of this anxious cycle, I would feel more confident in doing it more often. And that's another thing I wanted to pick up on is there's the phrase of feel the fear and do it anyway, but actually that can burn you out if you're not careful. And that's, I think, what was happening to me. I was saying yes to things because I wanted to challenge myself, but then I was doing like too much, and that's how I ended up kind of just getting overwhelmed and frazzled. So there's a stretch zone. So you have your comfort zone, and then you have like where you're overstretched, and then just in the middle, so slightly like, for me to go on live and do a TED talk, that would be a massive jump. Whereas I hope I'm trying to say this example right. So for me to tackle public speaking, if I signed up to do a live TED talk in front of 1 million people, that's a massive stretch for my anxiety, and like yours if you're watching. But what is a nice little stretch and a step is maybe do a talk in front of 10 people. Maybe talk in front of 2 people, in your job or whatever, or do a presentation, I don't know, in front of a classroom, something smaller, so that you're not jumping, you're slowly building up your confidence, but you're not overwhelming your system all of a sudden, if that makes sense. Don't get me wrong, there are people who jump straight in, face their fear, and do TED Talks. But I find, for example, when I was terrified of flying, I went on my first solo flight to London, because it was an hour and a half flight, and I didn't go straight on a long haul 8-hour flight miles away. My first little step in dipping my toe in getting over my fear of flying was to go to London, and I went just for the day, so I knew I was coming home that evening, and I had the 2 flights in the one day, so I wasn't kind of, I just took it slow. And then I gradually built up to longer flights. Then I did long haul flights by myself. I stayed longer in places, and I didn't just jump straight in the deep end and put myself on an 8-hour flight. I kind of just built up my confidence gradually. So that is my ramble on anxiety. It's going to be different for everybody, but for me, I find therapy and acceptance, and that good old Claire Weekes book, acceptance of the physical symptoms. So for example, my nervous system is on a come down now after doing the telly, and I feel really tired. But I'm not going to be like, oh no, why do I feel tired? Why I shouldn't. The why, the should, I'm just like, instead of like, oh no, or whatever, I'm trying to just be like, so what? So what? I accept that I feel tired. I flooded myself with adrenaline this morning. It was fun. Don't try and fight it alone either. If you have someone that you can kind of talk to, that you trust. Therapy is expensive. I ain't gonna lie. It's like the price of a set of nails. It's like the price of a manicure every week. So I know it's not going to be in everyone's budget, but if you can, I highly recommend it. There is another person I love following on YouTube. Her name, I can't remember her name actually, but her YouTube channel is Therapy in a Nutshell. She has amazing videos on anxiety to watch. I think she does have like an online course as well. I haven't done that. So yeah, the book's by Claire Weekes. But don't be put off by some of the terminology that she uses. I think the first place to go is go to your doctor first, get a check over, and make sure some of your symptoms are related to anxiety. Once that's all ruled out, then you can start, trying to look into nervous system, calming techniques, and be kind to yourself. Don't be so critical, that inner voice. I didn't think my inner voice was as critical as it was until I journaled. Until I also had my therapist mirror it back to me. And I was like, wow, I'm really harsh. I wouldn't say that to my friend. Why would I say that to me? That is it. Don't be fooled. I'm an anxious wreck this week, but I'm taking it in my stride. I have my publication date is Thursday, so I'm going to go out and visit some shops, sign some books. Karen is coming with me. I'm going to Cork on Saturday, and my girls are coming with me. So I was just thinking, like, having good people around you as well, because I can turn around to Karen and say, there was actually one day where we drank too much caffeine and we both felt like, oh shit. And I had to stop filming. We were doing a chit chat video, and I was like, Karen, I think I'm gonna have a panic attack. So we flooded ourselves with caffeine that day. But having good people around you, so I can say to my girls, listen, I feel a bit off today. But I still go, I still show up, and I sit with the uncomfortableness knowing that it will pass. But it's very hard to do. So if you are going through that, my heart goes out to you, because I get you, sis. I get you. So I'm now going to go upstairs, and I'm going to throw on my sloppies, and I'm going to go to the park, because I know what I need is to ground myself. I shouldn't really be having caffeine, but I know it's past. I don't drink coffee before anything anxious like that. So yeah, there is my anxiety chats. A bit waffly, but I hope it has helped someone. And if you're going through it, all my love, my friends, just remember that. What is it that book says? It's like, accept it, float through it. I'm just going around trying to float. The cats are back as well. I obviously bored them to death with my anxiety chat, but anyway.
So this week, another thing, as well as the gardening, that has been helping to distract Any anxiousness is a bit of cleaning and just even trying to do an hour here and there. I actually got a new sewing pattern. It's a sewing pattern, it's a Tilly and Buttons one. I think it's called the Erin sewing pattern, and it's to make a pair of dungarees. And I bought them, and the sewing pattern has been sitting on the kitchen table for the past week. And I thought that would be a nice thing to try and sew, and I think it will be nice and distracting because this week, as well as it being publication day and doing television, I have a couple of phone interviews for newspapers, which is so nice that I get to talk to these people and they're giving me a little mention in the newspaper. So that's nice, but I do find sometimes I can feel like a little bit anxious as well, especially if it's someone that I haven't spoken to before. And you never know what people are going to ask, but thankfully everyone has been lovely. So I like to do a little bit of cleaning in between. But actually, I wanted to do the sewing project, but my house, I feel like I can't start a project, especially with sewing, if the house is upside down. Does anyone get like that? I feel like sewing, especially when it's something new, like a new pattern, you can feel a bit angsty. So if the house is upside down, you're like, no. So I decided to clean the house instead of starting the sewing pattern because I was like, well, at least if the house is clean, I can kind of just. So something else that happened this week was my official publication day for Ireland and I think the UK as well. That basically means I am on the shelves. So you can go into a shop and most of the bookshops in Ireland I should be on the shelves. So on the day of publication, I popped into Eason's in Liffey Valley, Dubray in Liffey Valley. I popped into Blanchardstown. There's an Eason's in there. And then we went down to Trim. I say we because Karen came with me. She got more footage on her vlog. So if you head to her channel last week, she got some lovely footage of us being down in Trim. So just like tradition, we did this for when the first book came out. We hit up them hotspots, but we went down to Trim because there's a little bookshop down there called Antonia's, and I'll pop in a reel that I had posted on Instagram when I visited, and she's an independent bookshop and she's in Trim. Trim is a beautiful town, and I think there's a castle there that you can visit. It's quite popular with tourists, as in, like, it's a nice spot to stop. If you're around the kind of Boyne Valley area, it's just the prettiest town. And Antonia's bookshop is just a short walk down from the main street. She has just a beautiful shop front and she was so sweet and she put my book in the window and I just thought that's so nice because obviously books are such a competitive industry, and the larger shops, I mean, fiction is really popular in summertime. It's quite hard to like get into the window, so I just when I walked to the door of the shop and I saw I was in the window, I was like, that is such a nice thing to do, and I really appreciated it and I was so grateful. So if you are visiting and you happen to be down in Trim, if you pop in and just ask Antonia, she does have signed copies. She actually had one copy left of the first book as well, so I made sure to sign that, so if anyone wanted to buy the books as a pair. Myself and Karen then had a walk around the Rathote Garden Centre, and I have not been here since the last time we were here 2 years ago, and please remind me to visit this garden centre again because it is so cute and they have the cutest gardens inside. So today is publication day and I have come to the cutest bookshop in the cutest village. So I'm in Antonia's, so I signed all the books and drove there. Oh, that lady is flicking through my book. So how cute is this bookshop? I feel like I could rummage around here for hours. If you come to Antonia's, she will make you do all the hard work. We went for a black sticker because I feel like it's chic. So all of the copies in Antonia's are all signed and she even put me in the window as well. So if you are in Trim or if you're passing, please stop in and support your local bookshop. And yeah, here I am. I've made it to the shelf. And before I sign off, I just want to say a massive thank you for the support. Anybody who placed an order with Easons have started to get their books, and it came within about 5 days. So if you don't want to wait until July to get your copy overseas, you can order from both Bookstation and Easons here in Ireland, and you'll get it pretty much within a week. So thank you so much. Every time I see one of these comments, I love seeing where the books are going to. Like Kansas. There is a book in Kansas. That blows my mind. Oh, thank you so much for letting me have a bit of a random vlog for you this week, and I will see you in next week's video.